The only voice that matters is the voice of the jury, and the jury has spoken.
A jury of 12 Manhattan residents reaches an historic verdict. Donald Trump guilty on all counts. He is now the first former president to become a convicted felon. Good evening. I'm Maurice Dubois.
And I'm Christine Johnson. Trump was found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records.
His sentencing set for July 11th at 10 a.m., just days before Republicans are set to formally nominate him for president.
His former fixer, Michael Cohen, who testified against his old employer, walked out of his apartment tonight saying nothing. But in a post on social media, he said in part, "Today is an important day for accountability and rule of law. While it has been a difficult journey for me and my family, the truth matters."
It was June of 2015, almost exactly 9 years ago, when Donald Trump descended the escalators at Trump Tower to announce his run for the presidency. Tonight, he returned to that very building as a convicted felon. And right here, live video now outside Trump Tower, where crowds are gathered.
All right, friends, Dr. John here, and the news isn't great. Multiple courts across federal and state systems are confirming the case against Trump is legitimate. Dozens of judges, not one rogue prosecutor, have found he broke the law. The legal walls are closing in from every direction. Let's be absolutely clear about what we're dealing with here. A Manhattan jury consisting of 12 ordinary American citizens looked at the evidence presented against Trump and unanimously concluded that he was guilty on all 34 felony counts. That's not a partisan decision. That's not a political attack. That's a group of people from all walks of life who listened to the testimony, examined the documents, and reached a verdict based on the facts. Trump became the first former president in American history to be convicted of crimes, and now he holds the dubious distinction.
At least they were earlier, and there is where the president is going to stay. The former president will stay tonight.
And we have team coverage breaking down the verdict, also the reaction. Let's begin with Dick Brennan live outside criminal court now in Lower Manhattan. Dick.
Well, Christina Maurice, people in the courtroom gasped when they learned that a verdict had been reached. And now in the months going forward, this could have major implications on the country as a whole. It was an extraordinary and unprecedented moment in American legal history. Donald Trump, former president of the United States, guilty. Trump sat expressionless as the verdict was read, but afterwards he was infuriated.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt.
Trump was convicted of 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up his alleged sexual encounter with Stormy Daniels during his presidential run in 2016. The 7-man and 5-woman jury delivered the verdict in just over 11 hours.
The jury spoke decisively. It spoke unanimously. There wasn't really any doubt at the way that they were coming out in this case.
The prosecution's star witness, Trump fixer Michael Cohen, gave crucial testimony that directly implicated Trump in falsifying the $130,000 payment.
Of being the first sitting president to occupy the Oval Office while carrying a criminal conviction on his record. That's not speculation or opinion. That's the documented reality of where we stand right now. The President of the United States has a criminal conviction. That alone should be enough to shake the foundations of American governance. But the story gets even more complicated from there. Trump's response to this conviction has been to launch an all-out war on the judicial system itself. Instead of accepting the verdict or even respectfully pursuing appeals through proper legal channels, Trump has made attacking judges a central feature of his political identity. Researchers have gone through more than 14,000 of his Truth Social posts.
I guess the word is relieved. This has been 6 years in the making. It's accountability. It's exactly what America needs right now.
Daniels took her turn on the stand that at times was tawdry, and the defense called Cohen the gloat, the greatest liar of all time. But apparently the jury believed the prosecutor's narrative.
The only voice that matters is the voice of the jury, and the jury has spoken.
Trump is scheduled to be sentenced on July 11th and could face anything from probation to prison.
I think the real hard part for this judge is going to be to craft a sentence that makes sense.
But the former president says he expects voters will make a fair decision.
The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people.
Now, joining me now is Alice Gaynor. Alice, you were in the courtroom in that really dramatic moment when the verdict was read. What was it like and what was the reaction?
So the jury foreperson stood up and started reading all 34 counts on that verdict sheet, guilty. And the screen where we could normally see his face, the video feed was cut.
And discovered a consistent pattern of naming individual judges and attacking them personally whenever they rule against him. He calls them corrupt Democrat judges. He labels them radical partisans. He describes them as a grave threat to America. He claims that no president has ever been so evil and illegally treated in the entire history of the country. Every single adverse ruling triggers another explosion of rage against the judicial system as a whole. And this isn't just one judge that Trump is fighting anymore. The scope of his judicial conflicts has expanded to include trial judges, appellate panels, federal courts, state courts, and every level of the legal system that has touched his cases. The original trial judge, Justice Juan Merchan, who presided over the New York hush money case, has been subjected to relentless attacks from Trump and his supporters.
So we didn't have a direct, clear view of what he was doing, but courtroom artist Jane Rosenberg told me she had a good view, and she saw Mr. Trump look at the jury foreperson and then shake his head and close his eyes. We've seen him close his eyes for most of the trial. When he walked out of the courtroom, I was close to the center aisle. I had a clear shot of his face. And what I saw was him reach for his son, Eric Trump, his hand. I saw him walk out, red-faced, sweaty, and the expression on his face was very similar to that Georgia mugshot. That was the first thought in my head, actually. When he turned around, I thought, oh, I've seen that expression, that face before. So that, if you look up his mugshot, that was the facial expression he had on his face when he walked out of that courtroom.
And we heard what he said afterward. He clearly was very upset. Maurice and Christine.
And Vera and Will.
Whole thing. You've been in the courtroom day after day, watching every second of the trial. Now that it's over, this is history. What are your main takeaways as you come away from all this?
You know, Maurice, it was really interesting to see the court in action, to see this proceeding, because in so many ways, it was like every other proceeding that happens here at the criminal courthouse.
Then there are the pretrial judges from Trump's other criminal cases who made rulings he didn't like. There are appellate panels, multiple three-judge panels in both state and federal courts, who are reviewing different aspects of his legal situation. When you add up all the judges who have either let cases proceed against Trump, upheld adverse rulings, or are currently sitting on his appeals, you're looking at a staggering number of judicial officials who have reviewed the evidence and found it sufficient to move forward. This is unprecedented in American history. We have never had a situation where a sitting president is simultaneously trying to run the country and fighting to erase a criminal conviction that's already on the books. Trump isn't just facing potential future charges. He's already been convicted, the jury already spoke, the verdict is in.
Donald Trump was treated like any other defendant, except for, of course, the large security presence, all of the Secret Service, the court officers who were in the room. We had a lot of protocols in place, 2 security screenings we had to go through in here. But the judge seemed, by all accounts, by what legal experts are saying, and a retired judge I spoke with in the courtroom, they think the judge was very fair. Sometimes he was with the defense, sometimes he ruled with the prosecution, and he liked to keep things running, and he wanted to get this trial going, did not want any delays. And the jurors, they showed up on time. So it was really a smooth process when you think about all the moving pieces, parts, and the fact that the former president was on trial here in this courthouse. So to me, it was really impressive to see things operate as they would for anybody else.
And those jurors under so much pressure, surrounded literally by protesters all day long, but doing their duty ultimately. Maurice and Christine.
All right, Dick Brennan and Alice Gaynor, tremendous work, excellent insight. Thanks so much.
President Biden is currently in Rehoboth Beach with his family and will not be holding a news conference. However, he did post on social media saying, quote, "There's only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office, at the ballot box. Donate to our campaign today."
Now the question is whether the appellate courts will overturn that conviction or whether it stands. The implications of all this go way beyond Trump's personal legal problems. When a president constantly attacks judges as corrupt and radical and dangerous, he's not just defending himself. He's systematically undermining public faith in the entire judicial system. Legal experts have been warning for months that Trump's rhetoric increases threats against individual judges and turns every court ruling into a flashpoint in a larger war over whether the law applies to powerful people. That's the real story here. Not just whether Trump's conviction stands, but whether American courts can survive being under constant assault from the most powerful person in the country. If Trump can convince a significant portion of the population that every judge who rules against him is corrupt, then it doesn't matter what the courts actually decide. His supporters will believe the system is rigged regardless of what the evidence shows or what the law requires. To really understand what's happening with Trump in the courts, we need to go back to the beginning of this case and trace how we got to where we are today. The New York prosecution centered on hush money payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Prosecutors argued that Trump orchestrated a scheme to pay her off to keep her quiet about an alleged affair and then falsified business records to cover up those payments. The case was built on documents, witness testimony, and a paper trail that prosecutors said proved Trump knew exactly what he was doing and deliberately broke the law. The trial happened in Manhattan with Justice Juan Merchan presiding. Trump's lawyers fought hard to get the case dismissed before trial, to move it to a different venue, to disqualify the judge. Basically, every procedural maneuver you can imagine, none of it worked. The case went to trial, and the jury heard weeks of testimony, including from Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, who described in detail how the payment scheme worked. The jury deliberated and came back with their verdict: guilty on all 34 counts. Not a single acquittal or hung jury on any of the charges. It was a complete and total conviction. Now, here's what happened next, and why we're in such a complicated situation. Normally, when someone gets convicted of 34 felonies, they get sentenced and go to jail or face whatever punishment the judge determines is appropriate. But Trump isn't a normal defendant. He was running for president when this conviction came down, and then he won the 2024 election. Justice Merchan had to figure out what to do with a criminal defendant who was about to become the most powerful person in the country. The sentencing process got delayed and complicated in ways that have never happened before in American legal history. Trump's lawyers filed a 96-page appellate brief arguing that the conviction was fatally marred by errors at trial. They claim the judge made wrong rulings on evidence. They claim the jury instructions were improper. They claim the whole prosecution was politically motivated from the start. This is pretty standard appellate stuff. You throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. The case went to an appellate panel in New York where 3 judges are reviewing the trial record to decide whether the conviction should be upheld, overturned, or sent back for a new trial. But that wasn't enough for Trump's legal team. They also tried to move parts of the case to federal court, arguing that some of the conduct involved his actions as president and therefore belonged in the federal system rather than state court. This triggered another 3-judge panel in federal appeals court to hold hearings on whether the case should be transferred. The Justice Department even filed an unusual amicus brief weighing in on the question. So now you've got multiple panels of judges across different court systems, all looking at various aspects of Trump's conviction simultaneously. And at every single step of this process, Trump has been attacking the judges involved. When Justice Merchan ruled against him at trial, Trump called him corrupt and conflicted. When the appellate judges didn't immediately throw out his conviction, Trump accused them of being radical partisans. When the federal panel held hearings, Trump claimed the whole system was rigged against him. He's created a situation where every judge who doesn't give him exactly what he wants gets labeled as part of a conspiracy. 14,000 Truth Social posts, and counting, filled with attacks on named judges and the judicial system as a whole. The thing you have to understand is that Trump's attacks on judges aren't just venting frustration. They're a deliberate strategy to delegitimize any ruling that goes against him. If he can convince his supporters that all the judges are corrupt, then it doesn't matter what the courts actually decide. His base will believe the system is rigged regardless of what the evidence shows or what the law says. This is incredibly dangerous for democracy because it means a significant portion of the American public no longer trusts the judicial system to fairly adjudicate disputes. When that trust breaks down, the whole foundation of rule of law starts to crumble. Legal experts have been sounding the alarm about this for over a year now. They point out that Trump's rhetoric doesn't just undermine abstract concepts of judicial legitimacy. It creates real physical danger for the judges he attacks. When the President of the United States tells millions of followers that a specific judge is corrupt and evil and dangerous, some of those followers take that as a call to action. Threats against judges have skyrocketed. Security details have had to be expanded. We're in a situation where people who took an oath to fairly apply the law are now facing intimidation campaigns because they ruled against someone powerful. Let's talk about what the courts have actually been saying, because the judicial language really contrasts with Trump's rhetoric in striking ways. The judges who have ruled on Trump's cases consistently emphasize evidence and legal standards and constitutional requirements. They talk about reasonable doubt and preponderance of evidence and procedural fairness. They issue carefully reasoned opinions that explain exactly why they reached the conclusions they did. Meanwhile, Trump just screams that everyone is corrupt without engaging with any of the substance of their rulings. The New York conviction is particularly significant because it's already done. The jury already found him guilty. That's not a pending charge or an accusation or an indictment waiting for trial. It's a completed criminal proceeding that resulted in conviction on every single count. The appellate process can potentially overturn that result if the judges find significant errors, but the burden is on Trump to show something went wrong, not on prosecutors to reprove their case. And so far, there's no indication the appellate judges are finding the kind of reversible errors that would throw out the verdict. This creates a genuinely unprecedented situation for American governance. We have a sitting president who is a convicted felon. His conviction is currently being reviewed by appellate courts, but it hasn't been overturned. He holds the highest office in the land while simultaneously having a criminal record. Nobody knows exactly how this is supposed to work, because it's never happened before. Can a president pardon himself for state crimes? Does the presidency provide some kind of immunity from the consequences of a conviction that predates taking office? These are questions that legal scholars are debating in real time as the situation unfolds. Trump's approach to all of this has been to act as if the conviction doesn't exist or shouldn't count because he claims the whole process was illegitimate. But that's not how the legal system works. You don't get to declare your own trial unfair and therefore ignore the verdict. There's an appellate process specifically designed to review claims of error. And if the appeals courts don't find reversible mistakes, the conviction stands. Trump can call every judge in America corrupt, but unless he actually wins his appeals through proper legal arguments, the guilty verdict remains on his record. The judges reviewing Trump's case are in an incredibly difficult position, and I think people don't fully appreciate the pressure they're under. If they uphold the conviction, they know Trump will attack them viciously, and his supporters will view them as enemies. If they overturn the conviction on weak grounds, they'll face accusations of giving special treatment to a powerful defendant. They have to try to apply the law fairly while the most powerful person in the country is running a daily propaganda campaign against the entire judicial system. It's a stress test for judicial independence that we've never really seen before at this level. What concerns legal experts most isn't really whether Trump's specific conviction gets upheld or overturned. It's the broader damage being done to public trust in the judicial system. When a president constantly tells millions of people that judges are corrupt and courts are rigged and the whole legal system is a weapon being used against him, some portion of those people believe it. They stop trusting that courts can fairly resolve disputes. They start viewing judicial decisions as purely political rather than based on law and evidence. That erosion of trust has consequences that will outlast Trump's presidency. Regardless of how his individual cases turn out, the threats against judges are a very real and very serious manifestation of this problem. Trump names specific judges in his attacks. He tells his followers these judges are evil and dangerous and corrupt. And then those followers send threats to the judges and their families. Security details have to be expanded. Judges have to worry about their physical safety while trying to do their jobs. This is not normal. This is not how a functioning democracy operates. And it's happening because the President of the United States has decided that attacking the judiciary is good politics for him personally, even if it damages the institution for everyone. Now, I want to be clear about something that often gets lost in the noise of Trump's attacks and the political back and forth. The conviction itself matters for historical reasons. Even if it doesn't result in Trump going to jail while he's president, he is permanently marked as a convicted felon in the official record. That can't be changed unless an appeals court overturns the verdict. Future generations will read in history books that the 47th president of the United States was convicted of 34 felony counts in a New York court. Trump desperately wants to erase that stain from his legacy, which is why he's fighting so hard through the appeals process and attacking every judge who doesn't help him. But here's what we should all be paying attention to, regardless of which side of the political divide you're on. The spectacle of a president at war with the judiciary is bad for everyone. Courts need public legitimacy to function. When people lose faith in the fairness of legal proceedings, when they start viewing every judge as corrupt, when they think verdicts are just political statements, that's when the rule of law starts to break down. We need courts that can fairly adjudicate disputes, even when powerful people don't like the results. Trump's attacks are making that harder, and the damage may take decades to repair. This story is going to keep developing as the appeals work their way through the system. More judges will rule on various aspects of Trump's cases. Trump will attack whichever ones rule against him. The legal and political drama will continue intersecting in ways we've never seen before in American history. We're living through a genuine stress test of whether judicial independence can survive sustained assault from the executive branch. The implications of all this go way beyond Trump's personal legal problems. If a president can successfully delegitimize the judicial system in the eyes of millions of Americans, then the entire foundation of American democracy is at risk. The rule of law only works if people believe in it. If a significant portion of the population believes the courts are corrupt, then court decisions lose their force. People won't accept verdicts they don't like. They won't trust judges to be impartial. They'll look for other ways to resolve disputes, and that's how societies descend into chaos. Trump is playing a dangerous game, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's not just defending himself against criminal charges. He's building a narrative that will protect him from any adverse ruling, whether it's in a criminal case, a civil case, or any other legal proceeding. He's telling his supporters that the system is rigged, so any outcome he doesn't like is illegitimate. That narrative gives him cover to ignore court orders, to attack judges, to refuse to accept legal accountability. And if his supporters believe that narrative, then Trump can do whatever he wants without worrying about legal consequences. That's the authoritarian playbook, and Trump is running it with remarkable skill. But here's the thing about the judicial system. It's designed to be resistant to political pressure. Judges have life tenure in the federal system. They don't have to worry about losing their jobs if they rule against a powerful figure. They have security details to protect them from threats. They have institutional support from the legal community. And they have a professional culture that values impartiality and adherence to the law. So far, that system has held. Judges have continued to rule based on the evidence and the law, regardless of Trump's attacks. Appellate panels have reviewed the cases carefully and issued reasoned opinions. The judicial machine has kept grinding forward, slowly but inexorably. But the question is whether that system can hold indefinitely under sustained assault from the presidency. If Trump continues attacking judges for years, if he keeps delegitimizing the courts in the eyes of his supporters, if he refuses to accept any ruling that goes against him, eventually something will break. Either judges will start to cave under the pressure, or the public will lose faith in the system, or there will be a constitutional crisis that nobody knows how to resolve. That's the nightmare scenario that legal experts are worried about. And we're moving closer to that scenario with every new attack Trump launches against the judiciary. The appellate process will continue grinding forward regardless of Trump's attacks. Judges will issue rulings based on their review of the record and the applicable law. Some of those rulings will go Trump's way, and some won't. Trump will continue attacking any judge who rules against him because that's his strategy. Delegitimize the process so that whatever happens, he can claim it was unfair. His supporters will believe him. His opponents will point to the evidence in the verdicts, and the country will remain deeply divided over whether the legal system is holding a powerful person accountable or persecuting a political figure. The conviction itself matters for historical reasons. Even if it doesn't result in Trump going to jail while he's president, he is permanently marked as a convicted felon in the official record. That can't be changed unless an appeals court overturns the verdict. Future generations will read in history books that the 47th president of the United States was convicted of 34 felony counts in a New York court. Trump desperately wants to erase that stain from his legacy, which is why he's fighting so hard through the appeals process and attacking every judge who doesn't help him. Here's what I think happens from here. The appellate process will continue grinding forward regardless of Trump's attacks. Judges will issue rulings based on their review of the record and the applicable law. Some of those rulings will go Trump's way, and some won't. Trump will continue attacking any judge who rules against him because that's his strategy. Delegitimize the process so that whatever happens, he can claim it was unfair. His supporters will believe him, his opponents will point to the evidence in the verdicts, and the country will remain deeply divided over whether the legal system is holding a powerful person accountable or persecuting a political figure. The stakes couldn't be higher for the future of American democracy and the rule of law. If Trump succeeds in convincing a significant portion of the population that the judicial system is corrupt, then the foundation of American governance starts to crumble. The courts are supposed to be the final arbiter of legal disputes, the institution that resolves conflicts peacefully and fairly. If people stop believing in that institution, then conflicts will be resolved through other means, and those means are unlikely to be peaceful or fair. This is the moment we're living through right now. A president who is a convicted felon, a judicial system under constant attack, and a country deeply divided over whether the law applies to everyone equally. The outcome of this struggle will determine the future of American democracy. Stay tuned, because this is far from over. More judges will rule on various aspects of Trump's cases. Trump will attack whichever ones rule against him. The legal and political drama will continue intersecting in ways we've never seen before in American history. We're living through a genuine stress test of whether judicial independence can survive sustained assault from the executive branch. The appellate process will continue grinding forward regardless of Trump's attacks. Judges will issue rulings based on their review of the record and the applicable law. Some of those rulings will go Trump's way, and some won't. Trump will continue attacking any judge who rules against him because that's his strategy. Delegitimize the process so that whatever happens, he can claim it was unfair. Trump's conviction on 34 felony counts is now part of the permanent historical record. Future generations will see that the 47th president was a convicted felon. As appeals continue, the case is testing whether judicial independence can survive sustained assault from the executive branch.